Hey guys, so earlier this week I got the opportunity to fish with Brian Brosdahl, who is one of the top panfish fishermen alive. And we went out for bluegills, and honestly the reason why I'm doing this video right now is because to me this was actually one of the most eye-opening experiences I've had out on the ice. And so I've fished bluegills a decent amount growing up, but I never really dug in hardcore and dialed it in. And a guy like Bro, who spends as much time on the ice as he does, has got everything totally dialed. So I wanted to share with you guys 4 things that I learned while fishing with Bro that I think will make you guys a better fisherman. So the first thing I want to talk about is underwater cameras. And after this experience with Bro, I would say that an underwater camera is maybe arguably the most valuable tool someone could use, particularly in shallow and clear water for bluegills or bass or anything lurking up in the weeds. I think it's a massive, massive deal. And honestly, I think in those conditions, it's absolutely more important than a flasher.
Now come on here. No way, Wade. No way.
Whether it's for finding fish or marking fish, it can be a little tough to mark fish in shallow weeds with a camera. That is obviously not an issue unless the water clarity is bad. And not only that, but I actually think that it's extremely valuable for learning while you're out in the water. So with an underwater camera, you can see the mood of the fish. You can see how they're reacting to your baits. Do they want a fast jigging? Do they want a slow rise? Now with a flasher, you can sort of see based on the size of the mark, you know, whether it's going up, down, getting bigger, smaller. You can see a little bit of the mood of the fish, but it's nothing compared to a camera. So not only that, but I would say that one of the fastest ways that you can get better at fishing is by using an underwater camera. You could spend 5 years chasing bluegills trying to get better. I think I would honestly argue that you could learn more in 1 week using a camera, because you can see the mood of the fish. You can immediately see if you're turning them on or turning them off based on what your jigging cadence is. Do they want it fast? Do they want it a little bit slower? Do they want a slow rise? You can tell all this by watching them on the camera. And additionally, not only that, but you can substantially increase your hookups. I cannot tell you, I must have probably 3x'd the amount of fish that I caught while I was using the camera versus when I wasn't, because a lot of the times the bluegill would come up and it would look at my bait and it would softly nip at it, and I probably wouldn't have felt it, and without the camera I would not have known that it had taken a bite out of my bait. But also, not only that, a lot of the times the fish will bite like the head of the lure, and you can't really know that without a camera. So it was kind of cool. There's probably at least a dozen or 2 times where the fish would do that, where it would nip at the head. And instead of setting the hook and ripping the bait up and scaring the fish away, I just left it. And it would nip at the head, pop, 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 pop. And then the bait would kind of spin around and it would get the hook and you drill them. So the hooking percentage was substantially better, and I would say as a result, I caught several more fish, probably 3 times as many fish. So another big thing that I was really concerned about when I was thinking about fishing underwater cameras was just the mobility and the setup, and it just seemed like a lot of work. And particularly if you're fishing bluegills, you're generally doing a lot of hole hopping, trying to find the fish, and I just thought, man, I don't know if that's gonna work with an underwater camera. Because in my mind, I'm thinking you drill 2 holes, and you gotta remember, I'm not an ultra expert, so this is a little naive on my side. But I'm thinking you drill 2 holes where you're jigging in one, you drop the camera in the other, the camera's looking horizontally at the bait, and oh hey hon. And honestly, that's just not the case. So one thing that Bro does that I'd never really thought of was fishing the camera vertically. So you're looking straight down at the fish as opposed to sideways. And it's a lot more efficient. Actually, I'll grab the camera right now and show you what I mean. What are you doing? Alright, so I got the camera out here. And so what I meant by vertically was, a lot of the times I think of the camera sitting like this. Ella, quiet. So basically what I meant is a lot of the times I'm thinking of the camera looking like this, sort of sideways, looking at the fish. And what Bro does is actually, he'll just put the camera right down in his hole and it'll point straight down at the fish. Actually, I'll show you a couple of the clips that he recorded on his camera so you can kind of get an idea of what he was seeing. So this is actually just a lot more efficient, and it's really easy to just pull this up, stick it in the next hole, and you don't have to deal with drilling a second hole, spinning it until it's pointing the right direction. And it's a lot easier than I sort of envisioned when I thought of kind of hole hopping with cameras or just fishing bluegills with cameras in general. And so I would say that if I were to go out by myself and taking what I learned from this fishing trip, this is kind of how I would break down the camera theory. So this is sort of what we did. We went out and we drilled a bunch of holes in kind of a general area that seemed right, and we actually rigged up our cameras horizontally like this. And so I'll kind of give you an example here. You kind of pop it through, and just like this, it'll hang horizontally. So what you do is you drill like probably like a dozen holes or whatever, and then you go to each hole and you bloop, drop it down, and you see what's down there. And so what we ended up doing is we did just that, and in the two holes that seemed like it had the most bluegills or the biggest bluegills or the most activity or the best weeds, whatever you happen to be looking for on that day. And so once you determine what holes you want to fish, you simply pop it out, drop this bad boy in the hole vertically, and you've kind of determined what level the fish were at. Maybe the fish were about a foot off the bottom or so, and you put the camera about 2 feet above where those fish were hanging out at. I was asking Bro about whether or not the camera spooks the fish. He doesn't think that they do. He actually thinks that they sort of see it as cover. So take that for what you will. But I would definitely say that they were not spooked by it as I was fishing it. So that's a little bit of camera theory. But now I would like to move on to number 2. And this point was something that Bro really stressed a lot over and over. And you know, when somebody says something enough, it kind of sticks in your head. And he was telling me to make sure that I wasn't over jigging. It actually seemed like the primary reason why that was important today, or the day that we were out in the water, was because over jigging actually creates spin in the line, and you'll notice that on the camera. And as most of you know, spinning is not a great thing for your lure to do. The fish kind of get freaked out about it.
A man in China has set an unofficial world record for spinning on the same spot for 14 hours non-stop, and he said he didn't feel dizzy afterwards.
They're not super into a spinning jig, and when you jig too much, it actually puts spin in your line, depending on how your bait is rigged. And actually, one thing that's really interesting is you'll put your bait in the hole and it won't do much spinning. But when you drop it down to the bottom and look at it with the camera, it's incredible how much your bait is spinning, and honestly, you wouldn't even know it if you didn't have the camera. It just goes to show you that sometimes your line has way more twist in it than you think. So the third thing that I learned while fishing with Bro has to do with sort of the vision of bluegills. So bluegills feed on really, really small, tiny stuff, and necessity would have it that they have extremely good eyesight. And so why does this matter? So one thing Bro was telling me to do was to thread on my maggots in such a way that it was covering the entire hook. I don't think that people are always doing that. I think that they're threading it on halfway and having the rest stick out, or they're T-boning the maggots. And in his opinion, those fish are actually seeing the hook and that's turning them off. So for him, it was very important to have the hook covered.
I have 2 larvae on there, but you notice how I got them hooked? I hide the tip of the hook.
So that's just something to keep in mind next time that you're going out bluegill fishing. And so the last thing number 4 that I learned from Bro was just the whole concept and theory behind hole size for panfish. So Bro is a firm believer in 6-inch holes when he's fishing with bluegills. And so my thought process was, why is there ever any reason that you would want a smaller hole? So I get that you can drill holes faster, and of course a 6-inch hole definitely takes less battery to drill than a 10-inch hole, or gas, I guess, if you're using a gas auger. So that's always a consideration too, but I never thought that there was actually more utility to a 6-inch hole, like fishing utility, like benefit of using a 6-inch hole versus like an 8 or a 10. And one thing that Bro brought up that was really interesting, and I saw it while I was fishing, was he really likes 6-inch holes, because when you pull a fish, when you pull a bluegill through a 6-inch hole, once their head is up the hole, they're done. They can't turn back around and dip out and make another run and maybe get caught on the side of the ice. So that's just something that I found interesting. It gives them less room to kind of like run around in the hole and tangle up on your transducer or your camera cord. And it's just something I never would have thought of. So I'm sold on the 6-inch hole. I don't have a 6-inch bit, so I won't be doing it personally, but I absolutely see the benefit of it now. So those were just 4 things that I learned while fishing with Bro. And anytime you get a chance to fish with somebody of his caliber, you learn so many things. And after putting that video together, you know, I thought to myself, it would be a disjustice if I didn't share those things with you and pass those along. Hi, what are you doing?
We're gonna go to Target.
Say hi.
Hi.
Say hi.
Hi. Hi.
Alright, have fun.
Alright.
So I didn't think it would be fair if I didn't share those things with you. So if you enjoyed these tips, let me know below. If you guys have any other tips for me or anybody else out there, leave them in the comments section. And if you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate if you would like and subscribe. And until next week, thank you for watching. Alright, say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Say fishy.
Fishy.